Hello, and welcome back to Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer, as always, joined by Ashley Davis and Kurt Bardella. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Hope all of you had a very good Labor Day. I can't believe 2/3 of the year is over, but as always, sometimes a month seems like a year when it comes to the Trump administration. I have to say, I was prior to January 20th, as I enjoy doing, I was doing a projection saying, okay, what are the best case scenarios? What are the worst case scenarios? And I have to say, right now, we are at about 90% worst case scenario. So I'd love to hear what you folks think in a moment, but just taking a step back, looking at the foreign policy front, the Alaska summit was a spectacular failure. All it did was give Putin credibility and welcome him back to the world stage. Nothing was achieved. I have to say, I never thought you'd hear these words come out of my mouth, but I actually felt a little sorry for Trump. Because he was so totally played. Putin got him going on the Russia hoax and how rigged the 2020 election was and that how corrupt mail-in voting is and all this stuff. But it reminded me of, the fifth grade kid who's trying to suck up to his idol and will do anything or say anything that'll make him like him more. Putin agreed to nothing. In fact, as a total thumb in Trump's eye, he literally doubled the drone attacks after the meeting. So that shows you how effective that meeting was. Gaza is an abysmal failure. It's worse than ever. And the latest was the icing on the cake was you may have seen that summit that Xi Jinping hosted with Putin and now India. So this is the beauty because Trump is so enamored with Putin, he doesn't want to offend Putin. So he's beating up on India with 50% tariffs to get back at Russia, which is driving India into China's arms. Great foreign policy there. On the domestic front, agencies that were supposed to be above partisanship, apolitical agencies, firing the BLS director. The CDC is now in a total state of chaos, obviously attacking the Fed, trying to fire one of the Fed directors for allegations that are not substantiated. She hasn't been charged with anything. When Trump came into office, tariffs were 2.5%. Now they're 18%, which, by the way, is right about where they were during Smoot-Hawley almost 100 years ago. So it's pretty much a bleep show right now. Our people are moving past the U.S. in terms of our allies. Most people, I don't know a single person who thinks they were better off economically today than they were on January 20th. Our foreign policy is in shambles. So tell me, am I right? Am I wrong? Is my doomsday scenario justified? What say you, Ashley?
I'm not ready to be doomsday just because I believe in our country and no matter who's president, and I think that we'll be fine. But I do think in regards to Russia, just as the previous administration has seen too, it's been such a horrible situation and trying to get something done. I mean, obviously I agree with you. Trump thought that, and he said it several times, that he was going to be able to stop this war. Because I do believe, like everybody, him, us, as well as Republicans, Democrats, Europeans, don't want people to stop dying. And so I think what happens if he continues to embarrass him on the world stage is I do think that our secondary sanctions will continue to go in place. I think the Senate and the House will pass an extreme bill in regards to more sanctions as well on Russia. And one of the things that I do agree
Trump
with,
will sign it?
Yeah. No, I don't think that they'll do it unless he gives them the okay. I mean, Lindsey Graham's not going to take it up in the Senate unless Trump says now's the time. But Rubio said this, which I do agree with. As soon as that bill passes or as soon as it's introduced and ready to pass, it does delay things even a year longer. I mean, it gets us even into a bigger fight. I don't know what the answer is because everyone was hoping that this was a move in the right direction. And you're exactly right. Putin has done, exactly what he's always done, which is be untrustful, and he's continued to kill people every day.
And let me remind our viewers that today was the deadline. Remember, if things weren't going to happen
Yeah.
And by the way, Trump said on the going to Air Force One, he said, "Oh, if we don't get a ceasefire, there's going to be severe consequences." And of course, no ceasefire, no severe consequences. We don't need a ceasefire. We just need a peace deal. It's just so weak on every single level. But what are your thoughts, Kurt?
I mean, I think that the meeting of the minds of Putin, Xi Jinping, and Prime Minister Modi, that tells you intuitively that whatever came out of the Trump-Putin meeting and the subsequent meeting that Trump had with Zelensky and European leaders has somehow resulted in Putin feeling emboldened. And it's not an accident that, a week after Trump slaps India with these 50% tariffs, that, the prime minister is palling around with Putin. And all Trump seems to have done is somehow unite the adversaries of the United States of America together I'm imagining they're, plotting and planning against our interests. And basically they're telling Trump, what are you going to do about it? I mean, what are you going to do? You talk big game, but they're calling him out on it here. And unless Trump is willing to instruct the Republican Senate to activate sanctions and to, really assert himself, they're just going to continue running roughshod over him. And it's a really bad look for someone who has built his entire political identity on strength and the art of negotiating. They're making him look awfully foolish, and you have to think that somewhere Trump is losing patience with that shift, and
Or
will
he's
at
seething.
some point.
He has to be seething.
Yeah, nothing gets to this guy more than looking foolish or looking like he's been had as a patsy,
Or
and
weak.
or weak, exactly. And unless if he doesn't change tack, you can only draw one of two conclusions. Either one, he is content with looking foolish, and there's got to be a reason for that when it comes to Putin, or two, he is that classic bully that once you stand up to him, he withers, he cowers, he can't handle it, and he backs down, because most bullies themselves are inherently weak. And he's come up against someone in terms of Putin, who is not afraid of anybody, and doesn't have back down in his DNA either. So Trump's best bet has been to try to undermine Zelensky and make it look like it's Zelensky's fault. And again, I think that act has also worn thin, that people just don't have an appetite for that. So Trump's in a bit of a bind right now.
And our allies, as I said, are moving past us. Japan, he's even talking to Russia. I mean, to China. And they are, for foot of mile, that's even less of that's more oil and water historically than Russia and China. And, we should remind everybody, because there's so much that's going on. But, the tariffs are not just bad because they're stupid economic policy, but we had trade deals in place, which were passed by Congress. Some of them, like the NAFTA replacement, Trump negotiated. And he just tore those up. They don't mean anything. So it's basically telling the world that the word of the United States is meaningless. And that's why our allies are just moving past us. We're losing research. We're driving R&D out of this country. We're beating up.
If you look at the amount, Dave, look at the amount of people that are investing in the U.S. and not in Europe. I mean, if you look at those numbers, we have $5 trillion valuation companies in this country. How many? And I think the highest that the EU has for a company is 300 million. I mean, this is a big discrepancy of how people still people 300 billion. I'm sorry, people. Yeah, 300 million. That's nothing these days.
Rounding error.
But I'm seriously, it's a rounding error. But seriously though, I mean, people still want to invest in the United States of America. I mean, I'm not going to say our country is horrible. I didn't say that. All.
And by the way, Europe is terrible at treating capital. As someone who's, someone who's pays attention to investing, that's the edge the U.S. had as far as the market valuations. And this is something to be potentially concerned about. so much of that market valuation is in the what they call the Magnificent Seven, or the tech companies.
Yeah. No,
Nvidia is
correct.
over 4 trillion. Apple and Microsoft are over 3. Google and Amazon are 2.5. Meta or Facebook is about 2. Tesla's over 2. Only Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, is barely over $1 trillion. That
Is outside the
so
tech
in terms of the
world,
investment,
yeah.
in terms of our markets, absolutely. But I'm just talking about it in terms of the brain drain is more what I'm thinking of. And again, that's one of the key elements of populism is crapping on elitism, right? And there's nothing's more elite than medical research and science. And so that's why RFK Jr. is running roughshod over our healthcare system. And Trump is just fine with it, as are many other people in that camp. So I think, is this going to hurt us tomorrow or next week? No, but next year and a few years down the road, it really will. And people always say, well, how much of this is irreparable? And I think eventually you can rehire people. A lot of the Doge stuff was damaging USAID, which of course is our best example of soft power.
Okay, but let's just talk. It is, but let's talk about this though. USAID, which I've done a lot of stuff in, sit on IRI board, NDI board. The amount of waste that was there, we needed to have some sort of reset. I'm not saying get rid of everything.
Back on that, that's not true. They had no evidence of fraud. First of all, it's $41 billion.
I'm not talking about fraud. I'm just talking about overspending on places. I mean, I look at how much money was
$7 million it was $7 million on this, $5 million on this. And yet they're
no. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about IRI got money from the State Department, or I'm sorry, from USAID, that was $10 billion for Indonesia. I mean, I would rather use $10 billion in the United States. There's soft powers.
Their entire budget was $40 billion. It didn't come from
it was between USAID and State Department. I just think it was bloated. I find 100% I agree with you that it should have.
Then let's make it more efficient. But
that's my point.
It wasn't to make it more efficient. The point was to eliminate it. There was
not all of it. A lot of it's just been brought back into this Department of State. Anyway, I just feel like those agencies had a lot of bloat that needed to be pulled back.
Agency though, like you can make that case
and
say,
I agree.
Okay, let's dismantle DOD, the most wasteful agency.
Well, I agree with you on that. Well, I don't want to do DOD, but talking about bloat, you're 100% right. DOD.
I think my issue is more of Congress has appropriated money. President is unilaterally refusing to appropriate that money. We have a problem with the executive and the legislative branch right now. The president is unilaterally sidelining the legislative branch, and
they
for
are
some reason
they're spinalists who are going along with it. They have abdicated a lot of their power, but still, you're right. It's been a team effort.
It has been, but it's disheartening that the Republican Party, the party that once believed in a less centralized version of government, that believed in less executive power, that believed that the legislative branch, the people's branch, should actually be more empowered than the executive, is so willingly surrendering their power, ceding their authority, turning a blind eye to flagrant breaks in the constitutional separation of powers, and it's the Republicans that are complicit in allowing this to happen. If Barack Obama had done any of these things, they'd impeach him for it.
Well, and that's why nothing burns me more than to hear someone say, "Oh, I'm a Reagan Republican, and that's why I support Trump." No, Ronald Reagan would be turning in his grave. Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's a right-wing, illiberal populist. That's the best way to describe him. And he is not a conservative. He is not a Republican. And as far as the cutting goes, as I said, first of all, we've been hearing about waste, fraud, and abuse since Reagan. And everyone talks about it. And of course, Doge didn't really cut anything anyway. I mean, what was it like? We're talking $2 trillion. Ooh, we got $40 billion. But the real areas to cut, like the military budget, Okay. What do? Oh, let's get rid of $5 million to not make ships more climate friendly. They didn't cut anything. In fact, they just went and had this whole new bomber program, E-47. Trump's the 47th president. Get it? We're going to build a lot of them. So it's just worse than ever.
So speaking of that, speaking of appropriations, Dave and Kurt, what about, so it's beginning of September.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do we think? I feel I've been doing this, for 25 years, and I feel like every year I get there's going to be a government shutdown. So I'm kind of like getting immune to it. But this time I actually think it is. I do actually think, though, there is a potential of a week or two, because I don't know, Kurt, this question's for you, because is this one of those things that Democrats get blamed? I mean, that's what I was reading over the weekend, and I'm kind of we're in charge.
No, that's the key, and I definitely want Kurt to answer, but let me set the table a little bit, because I do agree back in March that, particularly with Doge going on, that it would have been bad to have a government shutdown, because then that would have empowered them more to take steps. So the big question is now, is who's going to get blamed, and is it, putting aside that, more importantly, is it good strategy? What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah.
Government shutdowns never benefit the party in power, in my opinion. And especially now, it's like, if this goes south for them, blaming Democrats, it just looks weak sauce to me, because everyone knows Democrats have no power right now, and that they're rudderless and leaderless. So it's just like, no, that's not going to pass muster. I think, moreover, we go through this dance every time. Shutdown is imminent. They can't get their shit together. Conservatives are holding out. They don't want to do a short-term extension, blah, 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 blah. And then when push comes to shove, they end up capitulating, and they do a short-term patch and kick the can down the road. And we have the same conversation in 30, 60, 90 days. I expect the same thing to happen here. If Trump doesn't want to shut down, Republicans aren't gonna hold up. Again, they will cry to the last second. They will say we have all these demands, and then at the 11th hour they will go, okay, we'll pass the CR and avert a shutdown. That's what always happens every single time.
What do you think? Any Democrat? Well, I don't know, because we've got like the Masseys, we've got some of them, but do you think any Democrats vote for it?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, why would you?
There's no political upside to it, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is going to be, conservatives want it to be a year-long CR with some additions added. But do they put some sweeteners in there to get conservatives, like the DC government stuff, to try to get things passed? I don't know. I'm so tainted by this, there's going to be a shutdown. Maybe I'm just negative Nelly today. Meaning that I think it will get itself worked out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely in their best interest, but it will be interesting to see, because I think the Dems are also getting so desperate right now that it's almost the Trump mentality. Let's throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. And so they may say, you know what, this isn't a guarantee. It may be spitting into the wind, but what do we have to lose?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the most dangerous adversary is one who has nothing left to lose, and Democrats are kind of at that point now where it's like they've been in such the wilderness in the abyss that you have to hit that low of lows before you can rebuild and figure out what you're going to be in your identity. And they're gaining some strides here. Like what Gavin Newsom's been doing has been incredibly effective, in my opinion, from a communication standpoint. He's the first Democrat, other than maybe James Tallarico from Texas, that has, I think, expanded beyond his initial sphere of influence and grown politically and in stature over the last 6 months. So, like, some of them are figuring
I
it
have
out.
to give him credit. Yeah. My question is, does he turn into a Ron DeSantis, because but I think he's done a great job fighting the fight.
I think he has a better
he's
shot
just not
than DeSantis,
likable.
because DeSantis had a
wasn't
real
either.
personality disorder, in my opinion. Those of us who worked in Congress, who when Ron was there, would tell you, this is not a guy you would cross the room to shake his hand if he walked in.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin, for all of his faults,
he has a very whiny voice, which I know sounds like a petty thing, but so much of people's voting for president is visceral, and how
absolutely. Well, and Gavin, for all of his flaws, like he has charisma. He has like a certain gravitas when he walks into a room. He knows how to carry himself.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I like the Gordon Gekko hairdo, but I think he is charismatic, and I think Democrats, as you say, are so desperate for someone to pick up the mantle. I think it'll work. Now, personally, I don't believe anyone from California is electable right now. Now that could change by the time we get to 2028, but I think he has a long road. But I'm just happy to see him going out there, and I think it is true because yes, we've had redistricting that's been totally partisan. Yes, we've even had it done mid-census, but we've never had a situation where the president of the United States says we need, or in his mind, we deserve those seats because I got the most votes ever in Texas. Total BS, of course.
Right. I mean, I would say if I were in charge of the Democratic Party, what I would actually orchestrate I would have.
And I think Newsom is smart to try to come back and say, okay, well, let's fight with fire, even though I do give the Dems credit that they did try with independent redistricting. The real problem for Dems, unfortunately, is demography. If you look at the 2030 census,
they're screwed.
We're talking like 10 to 12 seats. I mean, it is really bad because people are voting with their feet. So I think it's really, really going to be tough. And you couple that with the really insightful piece the New York Times did a couple of weeks ago, how since 2012, Dems have been losing votes every second, red states, blue states, purple states, rural areas, urban areas. So now
but Texas is going to be blue soon because everyone from California is moving to Texas.
Yeah, but
there you go.
The problem with that is people are moving to Texas are disheartened. So they're more likely to become Republicans or vote against Dems. Texas.
Well, this is why Democrats need to listen to like James Talarico.
No, James Talarico, I agree, is a new-time politician, and maybe on a later show we'll talk about him. I think he has a real chance of beating Weakley.
It's just too early for people to peak like Newsom. Right. Like I
think Newsom could very well end up in a situation where I could see Senator Alex Padilla running for governor actually, and then Newsom takes his Senate seat.
Would he appoint himself?
I think that like by the time that all plays out, like he could find a way to have that happen, or at the very least,
I guess
appoint
Padilla
someone who finishes out the term, doesn't run again, and then he runs.
Yeah.
No, I think that would give him a safe way out in case he can't get the nomination.
Because I agree with you. Ultimately, no one from California is going to be president. It's
right now, I just don't think it's doable. I think there's too many negative stereotypes. So I wanted to give you, before we go, I just wanted to get your opinion on what's going on recently with the courts. What do you think, Ashley?
Well, I was just asking my colleague who is in the Supreme Court world, and she said, there's a big thought process around Republicans, Democrats, just scholars of the Supreme Court, that the tariffs will stay in place. And I think that, so the Supreme Court comes back the first Monday in October. The stay is in place from the lower court till the 14th. Obviously, the Supreme Court can extend that if they want to, but they're used to this emergency docket so much these days. They'll probably get something. And I guess Trump either said he took it to the Supreme Court today or is taking it up in the next 24, 48 hours. Is that what he said? Yeah. So I think this will probably be decided on fast, but I've heard from both sides, they think this tariff stay.
Yeah,
from a legal perspective.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court so far, I don't really see them, and we haven't seen them ruling against Trump on any major issues. And even though, to me, this is so laughable because it so clearly says in Article 1 of the Constitution that the power to tax is with Congress. And so the fact that this is even an issue, and this is probably the greatest example of the total invertebrate state of all the members of Congress, how they have just rolled over and given one power after another to the executive branch. But what do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have seen the Supreme Court time and again reaffirm, Donald Trump's authority. I don't expect anything to be different here. I wish there was just a button we could press on issues that just fast tracked it immediately to the court, because everything that happens first from court, while makes for a flashy headline and chatter, ultimately it doesn't matter like what a lower court judge does. It's always going to get appealed. It's always going to end up like everything right now is ending up at the Supreme Court, which I think is that should inherently tell us that the system actually isn't really working that well. When everything gets appealed to this point, that laws are not being written well, they're not being interpreted well, they're not being executed well. Getting to the Supreme Court should be a rarity. It should not be the everyday norm of how we do policy in this country.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true, and it's yet another example of how dysfunctional our government is right now. Well, on that very sanguine note, I think we'll have to leave it there. But thanks to all of you for joining us on Practically Political, and I hope that your days are good and that things are a little brighter than some of the themes that we talked about in this podcast.
Yeah, the world's not coming to an end, Dave. Come on, we're America.
Football season. Football season is back. Something to be excited about. Go Bills!
I have total faith in this country. We are incredibly resilient. I don't even buy, we're just heading down the same road that Germany did in the 30s. No.
Oh, yeah, that's bullshit.
Well,
by the way, Kurt, what'd you say? Wait, Kurt, you said go Bills?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a Steeler fan, so I don't really care about
I'm a diehard Buffalo Bills fan.
I mean, at least...
So I'm used to disappointment.
Hey, think of the bright side. At least we're not Bill Belichick right now.
I know.
Oh, wow.
He needs to go.
Ouch.
Something.
Yes.
All right, guys.
All right. Talk to you guys
next
later.
Time.
All right, folks. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Always great to have you. And we will see you next time on Practically Political.